chapter of her life had been erased. Friends and family were left horrified and bewildered. Women who entered the convent of eternal tears, seeking solace and guidance, returned as hollowed versions of themselves, stripped of individuality, free will, and memory. Whispers spread through nearby towns that the Ashford sisters' spiritual cures went far beyond prayer and meditation. They ventured into the domain of psychological and physical manipulation, bordering on the grotesque. Local authorities, complicit through either fear or admiration, continued to turn a blind eye. The convent's wealth and seemingly charitable mission made the Ashford women untouchable. Families desperate to salvage their daughters' reputations willingly paid exorbitant fees, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant of the horrifying methods employed behind the convent walls. By 1810, the convent had expanded its reach. Women were now arriving from across New England, brought by worried relatives, magistrates, and even ministers, each convinced that the Ashfords' discipline would cure defiance, melancholy, or what they labeled as improper femininity. The sisters' knowledge of anatomy, psychology, and chemistry had grown astonishingly precise, allowing them to design interventions that permanently altered the minds and bodies of their charges. One particularly chilling case involved Eliza Whitman, a young woman sent for minor rebellious behavior. Eliza's letters to friends and family during her time at the convent were intercepted by the sisters. They meticulously edited her writing and controlled the content she was allowed to read, slowly reprogramming her sense of self. Upon returning home, Eliza's personality had vanished. She repeated phrases dictated to her by the sisters, performed daily routines with machine-like precision, and displayed an eerie detachment from her family and former life. Any attempt to recall her experiences was met with confusion, fear, or total silence. Even the town's medical professionals, such as Dr. Samuel Hartwell, became uneasy. While he initially praised the Ashfords' expertise, private observations began to unsettle him. Women would exhibit physical markers, small surgical scars, unnatural pallor, and lingering tremors that hinted at invasive procedures far removed from conventional spiritual counseling. Yet the sisters' charisma and careful manipulation of public perception shielded them from scrutiny. Rumors persisted of secret chambers, locked doors, and forbidden levels within the convent. It was said that those who resisted the sisters' methods were never seen again. Some claimed that faint cries could still be heard echoing from the stone walls late at night, though no outsider dared to investigate. The fear that surrounded the convent was so pervasive that even children in nearby settlements were warned never to approach the forest where the sisters lived. By the mid-1820s, the Ashford women had perfected their system. Novice temperance, once simply a beautiful, unsettling presence, now played a pivotal role in monitoring the residents, administering treatments, and ensuring absolute compliance. Prudence, whose hands had once seemed unnaturally steady, now moved with the calm precision of a seasoned surgeon. While Agatha supervised every operation, keeping meticulous records and coordinating the influx of new patients, accounts from former residents, later uncovered in hidden archives, revealed the psychological horror in detail. Women described being confined for days without food or conversation, subjected to sensory deprivation, or forced to endure excruciating rituals meant to purify the soul. Obedience was extracted, not just through fear, but through systematic dismantling of identity. Any attempt to recall one's past or resist the Ashfords' authority was treated as evidence of moral corruption and met with brutal correction. Despite this, the convent maintained its veneer of piety. Visiting families and townsfolk saw only serenity, well-groomed gardens, immaculate dormitories, and sisters who appeared angelic and wise. No one outside could imagine the horrors hidden beneath the stone walls. Over time, legends grew of miraculous transformations, hidden scientific knowledge, and even divine intervention, masking the truth of the sisters. cruel mastery over mind and body. By the time the Ashford women passed from the scene, their legacy was cemented. The convent of eternal tears had altered generations of women, leaving indelible marks that lingered long after the sisters' deaths. Survivors, if they managed to escape at all, rarely spoke, fearing disbelief or reprisal. It wasn't until the 20th century that historians pieced together fragments of the story from letters, medical journals, and surviving testimonies. Even then, authorities deemed much of the evidence too disturbing for public release. The chilling reality of the Convent of Eternal Tears is a testament to the dangerous combination of charisma, secrecy, and unchecked authority. Under the guise of salvation and education, the Ashford sisters manipulated, experimented on, and destroyed countless livesouls in pursuit of knowledge, control, and the twisted notion of spiritual perfection. The stones of the convent remain silent today, but the echoes of the past linger for those who dare to confront the darkest corners of history. The story of Agatha, Prudence, and Temperance, Ashford serves as a grim reminder. Evil often wears the mask of virtue, and not all sanctuaries offer safety. Some hide horrors so profound that even time cannot fully erase them. Sarah waited until nightfall, when the convent was cloaked in darkness, and most of the sisters were asleep. Using her detailed mental map of the building, she navigated through the narrow corridors and avoided the surveillance points she had memorized. She slipped past the sleeping novices and into the cold, stone corridors of the basement. The air was thick with the lingering odor of chemicals and antiseptics, a constant reminder of the horrors that had occurred there. She retrieved her hidden journal and notes, tucking them securely into her clothing. Every creak of the floorboards threatened to betray her, but she moved with deliberate caution. At last, she reached a narrow service door that led into the dense forest surrounding the convent. With trembling hands, she forced it open and slipped into the shadows. The main wilderness was treacherous, but Sarah's knowledge of medicine was matched by her survival skills. She traveled silently through the trees, using natural cover and avoiding the main paths the sisters had set for hunting or patrol. The storm from earlier had created difficult terrain, mud, fallen branches, and flooded trails, but it also worked in her favor, masking her tracks and muffling any sound of movement. She navigated by the stars and the faint glow of moonlight, reflecting off the snow, determined to reach the nearest settlement several miles away. Each step brought both hope and fear. The convent was a fortress of horrors, and she knew the sisters would stop at nothing to retrieve her if they discovered her absence. Sarah finally reached a remote trading post on the edge of the main wilderness, where she collapsed and begged for help. She presented her notes, diagrams, and correspondence to authorities and local physicians, recounting every detail of the Ashford sisters' operations. At first, disbelief met her words. The sisters were pillars of the community. Their reputation as healers and spiritual guides made people hesitant to act. But the physical evidence, scars on the women who had escaped before her, preserved specimens, and detailed case notes was undeniable. Authorities began investigations, uncovering decades of systematic experimentation, brain surgeries, and psychological conditioning performed under the guise of spiritual healing. The Convent of Eternal Tears was eventually shuttered, though many details remained obscured, lost, or destroyed. Some of the sisters disappeared without trace, their fates unknown. Many survivors carried lifelong trauma, fragmented memories, altered personalities, and deep psychological scars. Sarah Thornton became a key witness in documenting the horrors of the convent. Her bravery allowed historians and medical researchers to finally uncover the truth behind the Ashford sisters' methods. The story of the Convent of Eternal Tears serves as a chilling reminder. Unchecked authority, charisma, and secrecy can mask the darkest human atrocities. The convent's influence persisted far beyond its walls. European medical institutions, unknowingly incorporated findings derived from human experimentation. Families who had entrusted their loved ones to the sisters' care often remained unaware of the true extent of the transformations. Yet the courage of women like Sarah ensured that the horrors were recorded, remembered, and ultimately revealed to the world today. The Convent of Eternal Tears stands in history as a warning that even in the name of faith, science, or progress, human lives must never be treated as experiments, and obedience must never come at the cost of autonomy, dignity, and memory. Sarah Whitman's escape did not spare her from the lifelong damage that had afflicted so many before her. Unlike the other women who had been reshaped and broken by the Ashford sisters' interventions, she retained her mind, but the trauma she endured left permanent psychological scars. Her window of opportunity had closed rapidly. The sisters were growing increasingly suspicious of her resistance to their conditioning, and every moment delayed her flight risked permanent submission. Her escape came on a moonless night in early April 1819. Overpowering a guard, she fled into the dense Maine forest. For 3 grueling days, Sarah evaded the relentless pursuit of the Ashford sisters, who had mobilized local men under false pretenses to track her. Each step was a battle for survival. She drank from spring water, foraged edible plants, and hid in fallen trees during rainstorms while the sisters' calls echoed through the woods. Her knowledge of the forest from childhood logging trips proved crucial, allowing her to slip past near capture on the second night. By the 3rd day, her body was failing. Dehydration, hypothermia, and bleeding feet threatened to slow her down. Yet her resolve to expose the sisters' crimes kept her moving. Salvation arrived in the form of Joshua Meadows, a trapper checking his lines. Initially skeptical of the wild-looking injured woman emerging from the forest, Joshua's doubt vanished as Sarah described intimate details of the convent's interior dales only an insider could know. He provided food, clothing, and safe passage to Millbridge, where she finally reached Sheriff William Hawthorne on April 18, 1819. At first, Hawthorne shared the initial skepticism common to witnesses of extreme wilderness trauma, but Sarah's stolen documents, a surgical log of 23 women, correspondence with European researchers, and a catalog of over 600 patients offered incontrovertible proof. The logs detailed the Ashford sisters' deliberate cranial interventions, systematic personality modifications, and even recorded deaths during experimentation. Letters revealed an international network of researchers purchasing the sisters' human experimentation data, while patient records showed permanent psychological damage, disappearance, or death for hundreds of women. The sheriff organized a raid on May 20, 1819. By then, the Ashford sisters had vanished, leaving behind only the horrific evidence: a fully equipped surgical theater, shelves of preserved brain specimens, hidden chambers containing dozens of bodies, and thousands of pages of patient records and correspondence. The scope of their crimes spanned over 20 years, implicating collaborators and unwittingly influencing medical curricula around the world. Dr. Samuel Hartwell, confronted with his complicity, attempted to justify his role as advancing medical knowledge, but upon realizing the full extent of systematic murder and human experimentation, he suffered a mental breakdown, revealing the sisters' true identities. Dr. Agatha Brennan, Dr. Prudence Ashford, and Dr. Temperance Ashford, European physicians, expelled for unauthorized experimentation. Despite one of the largest manhunts in early American history, the sisters disappeared completely, leaving behind wealth, multiple escape routes, and false identities. Many victims returned to their families damaged beyond repair. Others remained missing or were found dead in the convent's hidden chambers. Families often chose silence over public scandal, ensuring the full scope of the Ashford sisters' atrocities remained largely hidden. Sarah survived, but the emotional toll was immense. She moved to California under an assumed name, worked as a teacher, and lived a life of quiet seclusion. Her memoir, written shortly before her death, in 1863, remains the most complete account of the Convent of Eternal Tears. Though the sisters were never captured, unconfirmed sightings suggest they may have continued their work under assumed identities. The Convent of Eternal Tears remains one of the darkest chapters of American history, a stark reminder that unchecked ambition, social prejudice, and the pursuit of knowledge divorced from ethics can lead to atrocities that defy comprehension. It also demonstrates society's capacity for silence, complicity, and the erasure of victims' suffering in favor of protecting reputations and progress. Could such horrors truly have remained hidden in early American society? The evidence says yes. Could something similar happen today, masked by respectability and scientific progress? History warns us to remain vigilant. If this story sent chills down your spine, share it with someone fascinated by dark mysteries. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to uncover more secrets the shadows of history tried to erase. In our next video, we'll reveal another forgotten chapter that challenges everything we thought we knew about the past.